and none shall want her mate, which means you cannot mate the book with any other book. But there's some issues here. We have Gentiles who have come lately under the Roman Catholic Church and Jesuits who are looking to give credibility to outside sources against our brother, King James. Now, I'm sitting here with the King James Version Bible. Okay? Now, before I go into King James, let me mention King James was, in fact, as you can see here, a black man, a king from the Dark Ages, who sat on 3 thrones at once. The underlying issue with these records being debated today is the fact that what was going on in what they would call the Reformation, or during the time that there was a protest against the Roman Catholic Church. Well, that was an independent battle between Jacob and Esau, because our people, the Israelites, ruled Europe. So one reason why I will only use the King James, because King James stood for me. When I read in the preface, and I have a King James 1611, it reads, "Great and manifold were the blessings, most dread sovereign, which Almighty God, the Father of all mercies, bestowed upon us, the people of England." England is angel's land. English was angel's tongue, a language we created to get away from the satanic Latin. "When first he sent your majesty royal person to rule and reign over us. For whereas it was an expectation of many, who wished not well unto our Zion." So King James was a Israelite. He was not a homosexual. He was not what the Jesuits and Catholics wrote against him 25 years after his death. Okay? He got scholars together. He gathered Israelite records together because he was an Israelite, knowing that the Roman Catholic Church was conspiring against him and his people who were scattered and soon would serve. Now, when we look at this, there have been a whitewashing throughout the earth concerning Christ and his people. Okay? Now, it's ironic that when we were talking the last time, he went into a father of Antioch. Speaking of you, Mr. White, not showing you that in Antioch, the disciples were all black men. I'm going to Acts 13:1 real quick. I'm going to show you why I'm standing with the Bible. At King James Version, Acts 13:1 reads, "Now there were in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, as Barnabas and Simeon, that was called Niger." That was called Niger. Is that crystal clear? That was called Niger. So the Jews and the Israelites, the disciples, were all black men whitewashed by the Romans. So once we fell in 70 AD, the Romans began an imposition against us and began to not only destroy us, but look to change our records as a point of control before the Most High began to awaken his people. Now, part of the King James Bible is the Apocrypha, which was translated out of the Septuagint. This ain't the first time Edomites attempted to deal with our forefathers' records. Okay? When you read in the Apocrypha, and I'm at Maccabees 3:48, when Antiochus Epiphanes and others looked to destroy our people. And they laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. They always look to take down our records and put themselves instead of us. I'm going here in Maccabees, the first chapter, the 56th verse. Okay? And I hope you all can hear me clearly. Okay? And burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law, which they found, they burnt with fire. And wheresoever so found with any of the books of the Testament or any consented to the law, the king's commandment was that they should be put him to death. That they should put him to death. So they was looking to kill us, okay, and destroy our records. Who did this? The Greeks and the Romans. Now, as we deal with King James, he realized that he was in a compromise, or what you would call there was an assault against him from the Roman Catholic Church. Okay, so he put scholars together to hold dear our record so that we again would rise as a people, the children of Israel. It so happened, there's a little feedback there.
Yeah, that means your time's up.
Okay, go on.
Okay. All right, I'll start my timer for my... Okay, the King James translation of the Bible is a venerable 17th century Anglican translation. It was not the first English translation by a stretch of the imagination. We have Wycliffe, we have Tyndale, you have the Bishop's Bible, you have the Geneva Bible, which is a fine translation. It exists today in multiple revisions. You have the 1769 Blaney revision. I'd like to know which one actually is supposed to be the final authority, because there were many revisions, 1611, numbers of years after that, 1769. You have the Oxford, you have the Cambridge. They are not identical to one another. I'd like to know which one of these is being utilized and which one of these is being put forward as the final analysis of all of these things. The translation work itself was based upon printed editions of the 1525 Blomberg text, the Hebrew text, and the 5 editions of Erasmus, Stephanus, and Beza as far as the Greek went. And so there was not original manuscript work being done in the production of the King James translation, and hence it's based really upon about less than a dozen manuscripts, whereas today we have access to